Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is a new series of videos about how to write an essay. These will be on various different forms, so speech, article, letter, and descriptive writing. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. If you have, thank you very much, and make sure you put any comments down below so I know if you have any questions or if anything I say isn't clear enough. So what should be in a speech? Direct address to whatever audiences you're speaking to, using rhetorical techniques for engagement. For those of you who don't know what a rhetorical technique is, it's any kind of device that is used to persuade an audience to do or feel a certain feeling. So any kind of persuasive devices that you normally would use is a rhetorical technique. Facts and statistics, and thanking your audience for listening to your speech, because remember, you're actually addressing someone whether they're reading it or listening to it. So the assessment objectives that are being looked at is AO5, so communicate clearly, effectively and imaginatively, selecting and adapting tone, style and register for different forms, purpose and audiences. So organize information and ideas using structural and grammatical features to support coherence and cohesion of text. It has to make sense. If it's not making sense, you're not getting the marks. AO6 is candidates must use a range of vocabulary and sentence structures for clarity, purpose and effect with accurate spelling and punctuation. For this sort of question, you will be getting a significant number of marks for your spelling, punctuation and grammar, so make sure you take the time to read through it and that everything makes sense. So the things to remember. Based on your audience, you need to adapt your vocabulary and speaking style. So if you're talking to professional adults, your vocabulary will obviously be different if you're speaking to people in your peer group. And you are trying to persuade people to your way of thinking by using persuasive techniques and subtlety. Avoid being aggressive and blunt. So here is an exam question. That's an example. So in order to prepare young adults for the challenges of raising a family, it should be made compulsory for them to spend time volunteering with young children. Write a speech to be given to your local council in which you argue your point of view on this statement. I'm going to give you two sample answers that we're going to be looking at the good points and the bad points for both of them. So, plan. Because if you don't plan, do you even know what you're doing? Halfway through, you're going to get stuck, you're going to get confused, you're going to forget all the ideas you had initially. So the best thing to do is jot everything down in the first 5 minutes to make sure you don't lose your train of thought later on. So, you're going to be looking at genre, in this case speech, audience, purpose, techniques, and spelling, punctuation and grammar. You can't always plan out everything, but at least getting your ideas down, whether you use them or not later on, is the most important thing. So, write a speech to be given to your local council in which you argue your point of view on this statement. Genre, speech. Audience, your local council. So obviously it's not going to be your peer group, which will already give you an idea of the type of vocabulary you should be using. And the purpose is to argue your point of view. So you are trying to persuade them. You are to pick a side. You're not doing both. You're doing one single side because you're trying to get them to be on your side and to agree with your point of view. Techniques that you need to be using. So the rhetorical devices need to be used. Hyperbole, rhetorical questions, lists of 3, parentheses, so using punctuation to add in extra information, antitheses, using opposites to help describe your point, and emotive language. You need varied sentence forms in order to add sophistication to your work. An advanced vocabulary, especially considering who your audience is for this specific speech. Here is sample answer 1. Hello, I think it's a good idea to make young people volunteer with children. Not just because they need to be prepared, if they become parents one day. It's just generally really good for you to hang around with children sometimes. The positive side of the argument is that when you work with children, you start to develop important skills like selflessness, good communication, and imaginative thinking. These are really important to being a parent, but also in the workplace and in other areas of life. Some people would probably disagree with me. It's tough to find the time to volunteer, and I suppose the program will probably turn out to be expensive, but it's worth it in my opinion. If I'm right, then the future will be full of happy children raised by experienced parents. What would you give that answer? So although the answer had some structural techniques, it needed more paragraph breaks and linguistic devices. There was a use of parentheses in there and the list of 3. It needed more advanced vocabulary. Remember the audience you are aiming for. The text was too informal. It started with hello. Again, this is going back to the audience you're aiming it at. So the final score is for content 8, technical accuracy 7, so a total of 15 out of 40. Sample answer 2. In a nutshell, the idea of a young people's volunteer program is a deeply flawed concept. Whilst volunteering with children is undoubtedly an effective way for young people to experience the trials of parenthood, the program has a number of practical and logistical difficulties which shed serious doubt on its advisability. Young people simply do not have time to volunteer. They are already ground to the bone, juggling home life and academics in the hope of getting that important first job. Moreover, the assumption that all young people will one day have children is outdated. Up to 10% of young people say that they do not wish to become a parent. Thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, humans have raised children since the beginning of time, since time began. Why waste time when we are evolutionarily primed to be good parents? So what would you give this answer? So it's well suited to the form and purpose. It's persuasive. Technical accuracy is very good, but could use a wider range of punctuation. It did use a few, but it needed just a bit more and maybe more breaks. It used a colloquial expression that was inappropriate for the audience. It started with in a nutshell. We may say that in everyday life, but it's not formal enough. So the final score is 18 for content and 15 for technical accuracy, so a total of 33 out of 40. Do you agree or disagree with these grades? So don't panic, please. Please don't panic. You may not be able to write like sample answer 2, but you can get there with practice. So remember, you have all this knowledge in your head, you just need to bring it out of yourself. If you want to improve your vocabulary, but don't want to read books, listen to the news or read sample answers. You'll pick up words from reading what other people have written for you to see what you can get. You'll be surprised how much punctuation you know and can use to improve your writing. You know all the punctuation, you've been learning them since you were in year 1. So don't think you don't know how to use them or when to use them. And as for grammar, my personal trick is to read my work out loud. You may not be able to do that in an exam, but at least you can mouth it. Because when you read in your head, you tend to overlook your mistakes because you know what you wanted to say. But if you read it aloud, then you will see the mistakes easier. So, was this useful? So share, like and subscribe. Leave a comment for further questions. And I'll see you next time with the next video in this series.